Excellent. I was just doing a little Fatboy Slim. Right about now, the Funk Soul Brother. Hello, everyone, and welcome.
You just give me a really hard edit job, but okay, yeah, carry on. Welcome. Because I'm going to cut out the beginning bit, but carry on.
Okay. Just leave it in. Everybody's going to love it. My name is Brace Harris.
And I am Victoria Fenton.
And we are
Unveil.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
We are back together.
We are.
Yay.
Miss Fenton has just made the trek over across the pond from Scotland via Heathrow in the UK, and now she is in Los Angeles. We're actually filming today in her temporary living space.
Yes.
And she has brought me, for anyone like watching us on YouTube.
I'd encourage going to YouTube anyway, just for this.
Yeah, so Victoria brought me back from Scotland. Of course, my last name is Harris. She brought me some Harris tweed, official made on the Isle of Harris, a tweed cap, and I am rocking it, I do have to say.
It really does suit you.
Yes.
It's the kind of, anyone who knows Harris tweed, there are a few colourways, and I've gone for the less purpley ones. It's got lots of blues and greens, and it really, this is going to sound like such a weird thing to say, but it really brings out the blue in your eyes, Brace.
Well, I do have the blue and the green. Yeah. No, that's perfect. So it's lovely. And just, I've really coordinated it actually rather well now that I'm looking at myself in the mirror. I have a blue jean.
This isn't a fashion episode, guys.
Yes.
But it is interesting having mentioned my temporary abode.
Yes.
Because we're going to talk all about the travel that I've just been through and the chaos that I've been through. And whatever the title ends up being for this podcast.
Travel and chaos?
Well, no, something along the lines of how to deal with major stress as an empath. I think we're probably going to throw that in there.
Beautiful.
But
yes.
How are you, Brace?
I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. I have had a lovely holiday.
Mm-hmm.
We're back from the holidays. We had a wonderful New Year. I just got out of quarantine because I caught the Rona.
Yeah.
And probably if you're listening, you may have had it too.
By now.
Yeah, it's pretty contagious.
I haven't.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You better find some wood. Knock on it. There you go.
Oh, sorry. Feedback on microphones.
But yeah, so it was good. Very mild experience. Both myself and my wife, and we are good to go now. We have been cleared. We are feeling healthy. How are you?
Good. Now. Now, it's been a rough time.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Let me just get some water. Okay, so we're going to use my recent experience as the kind of framework and backdrop to today's podcast, because it's relevant, because everything that we do in our professional world, just speaking personally for us too, I think a lot of it comes from our personal world. I think a lot of it is emergent out of the way we've experienced things and how we do things. I think that's probably default as coaches anyway. People don't get into this without having had a need for a coach or a bit of a hard experience. So yeah, preamble, we're going to use my recent experience to impart some wisdom.
Beautiful.
So,
yes.
Let me explain. I went back to the UK, when was it? Mid-December? About the 13th of December, something like that. And was heading back here and needed to be here by now because I'm actually heading to Austin this time next week. And the Lux Mastermind, which people will now know that I am a part of, has a retreat in Austin the end of next week.
Yes.
But given the Rona and all of the travel chaos, I've needed to plan things around having enough time in places just in case I caught anything traveling, and to be here for sufficient time so that I've got time to quarantine and effectively be okay, so that I don't expose the other ladies to any stress and problems. So I also have needed to facilitate kind of the whole year, planning it out, knowing dates when I do need to be here and dates when I don't need to be here, and what I want to be here for and what I can afford to miss. Essentially because whilst a business visa application is in play, having an appointment at immigration in London is uncertain at the moment in time, and we don't actually know when I might get my business visa. So planning out the whole year when you've just started a new business and you're about to embark on something very unknown is tricky. So there's also been so much uncertainty. So technically within immigration for America, I'm not working here, and legally I'm not working here. We're recording a podcast, but this isn't monetized, and I'm not seeing any clients in person in America at this moment in time because I legally can't work here on the tourist visa that I have. But on the tourist visa that I have, you're technically not supposed to just keep coming in and out of the country at will and spending lengthy periods of time here. So there was always the risk that I wasn't going to get allowed in when I landed at LAX. Mm-hmm. On top of that, if people were watching, through Christmas and New Year, Omicron went mental, and every country here and the UK started making ridiculous rules. Mm. So you dropped me off at LAX about 7.5 hours early for my return flight back to the UK. So I could get a COVID test, wait to get the results, then get on a plane because I needed to have one really consecutive. Same deal, coming back from Scotland, needed to be there to have a COVID test the day before I got on the plane. At any one of these points, a COVID test could have been positive. I was in hotels and like traveling around and had spent the period in Shetland, as you say, in the Scottish Islands with my mum and the family that are up there. And trying to plan coming over to America with all of these unknowns in the way. Travel at the moment is a ball ache. It is ridiculously difficult to make enough space for uncertainty. And so what I knew I couldn't do as well is commit to long-term expensive accommodation with all of the risks being I might not get let in at the airport.
Right. Which only compounds stress, and yes. Right.
And so lying in bed months ago in my old apartment, I found a place that I wanted to be, ironically, in this complex that I'm now sitting in, that I could have rented immediately from then. And I almost did it and didn't. And then over the time, during my time on holiday, the place went. For a long time. It's not available till the 4th of April. These are longer term lets this time, they're not Airbnbs. Right, okay, not supposed to be there, fine. So over this period, I have found a grand total of 5 further places, all of which have gone in the time that I'm being cautious and not committing. On top of that, I already knew that the place that I stayed last time, which people will have seen on our previous podcast if they've watched the YouTube, which was lovely. Nice place, lovely Airbnb host, was already rented, and I knew that, so I couldn't go back there. And it just turned into absolute chaos, a total comedy of errors of keeping on losing apartments over and over and over again. And then my plan was, and I said to you, I'm going to book this apartment that I found after I know my COVID test is negative, so that I know that I can at least get in for COVID. So I logged on onto the internet just before going for my COVID test a few days ago now, and the apartment had gone. So that's chaos. And coupled with this, the other thing as well, like for anyone who is in the UK, you will know that over Christmas and New Year we had like 49 bank holidays, like because Christmas and New Year fell on Saturdays and Sundays. So in the UK, they grant you an extra holiday for the days that fall on days that would be holidays anyway. So Christmas and Boxing Day, bank holidays. So it was the Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Everybody was off. No post was going anywhere. I'd ordered clothes to get to Austin. I had 5 credit cards trying to get their way to me because it just so happens they all renew.
She's
at
a
this
big
time
spender, you guys.
No, it's just they renew, and our company credit cards and everything. Just everything was trying to come to me. And then New Year's, same thing, especially in Scotland because they have the 1st and 2nd off. So New Year's Day and the 2nd was a Saturday, Sunday. So another 4 days of holiday. All of this just building and building stress. So I got nothing that I need. Everything is going to the wrong address.
Right.
I've got nowhere to go to.
Right.
I've got no confidence that I'm actually going to get there and get into the country. Just so much uncertainty. And she won't mind me saying this, but I'm living with my mum. And my mum is not the most zen and relaxed of people. She does get anxious about things. It's in our genetics. It's actually part of our kind of connective tissue experience. We get stressed. It's like we can't hold on to everything. So we do, and Mum has not been very well over the previous period. She was not well when I was here. So I sort of arrived back just at the moment where she was getting back on her feet. And then it's Christmas and New Year. And like, we don't love the season for personal reasons. So it was just, to say it was a shit show.
How familiar does this sound to everyone out there?
Yeah.
It's like one thing after another, rains, pours,
Yeah.
cats and dogs,
Yeah.
chaos.
And trying to manage a life here from there, for me, is very difficult. And there is so much impermanence. You know this as well as I do. It's like every time things go wrong, I'm not just a, oh well, let's work it out person. I'm a, is this a sign from the universe person? So I've had to, every time something fell through or didn't happen, I was like, is the universe trying to tell me something? Am I supposed to like check my thought process? All of that. And then just to conclude the practical backstory, I arrived finally after a very long flight, but I honestly was at Heathrow on Sunday morning and I was petrified, and I couldn't reach out to you because you were in bed because of the time zone stupidity, which is a big part of the reason why I'm here in the first place, because I hate being on wonky time zones with people. So I was like, I legitimately can't work out what's wrong. I was so scared getting on that plane. And I'm not afraid of flying. I've got an aircraft obsession, as you know. So I couldn't work it out. There was a load of stress about my seat because I changed this flight last minute, so I thought I was going to be in the middle seat on an 11-hour flight. I was like, oh, this is horrible. Got on and it was actually okay, very long flight, didn't get any work done that I needed to. Landed. To say that I sailed through immigration would be an understatement. If I was there in half an hour, I would be surprised. I literally was through like a shot.
Half the world is really upset with you. Right?
I know, I'm sorry, but I just flirted with the immigration guy. Am I allowed to say that? Probably not.
Just don't say his name.
I didn't find out his name. We did not have that long a relationship. Which is not typical.
It's like, that's what you do. You love him and leave him.
That is my vibe, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, he was lovely and just stamped me through, and I went straight through and and got to baggage reclaim, and there was a bit of a stupid thing, and I was the genius who noticed that they put the wrong carousel up for our bags and literally yelled across LAX, guys from the Heathrow flight, the bags are over here. So I feel like polish my halo. And I was thinking, the universe is showing me that I've found the right place. This is great. This is amazing. Oh, and just to say, I'd managed to book somewhere last minute here to get me to Friday. So it's currently Tuesday, so Sunday to Friday I've managed to book a place and thought I'll sort everything out when I get there because it's a short space of time. I know that something is available from the 17th. I've got 3 days to fill. That's it. It'll be fine. So I got on the shuttle bus to take me to the car rental place. Having booked my car rental from Heathrow Airport, I was like, and I was there so quickly, and I get to the car rental place and I'm speaking to the guy and booking a Toyota RAV4, all that kind of thing. I'm just about to click on accept the terms and conditions, and he's like, oh no, that's just been taken by somebody else in the office. So I lose my car. So he does the lovely thing of upgrading me. So I end up with a Toyota 4Runner, which, if anybody knows the difference, it's just a huge car. It's a big car. Brace doesn't understand. He's like, he's got a Jeep, he loves big cars. I'm like, no, I need my little compact mini SUV. It's what I paid for, what I want. Didn't have the bandwidth to object when I saw the car arrive. They had cleaned it specially and pulled it right into the front of the garage, and I was freaking out and ended up on a freeway in a tank. And I'm like stressing about it. I was stressed about it. Sure. And then
that's why I text you. I was like, just nudge people out of the way. They will move.
They will move because you're in a massive tank. Whilst trying to keep you updated, trying to keep my mum updated, who's, as I've just said, she stresses, and it's like already midnight where she is when I'm doing all of this. So I managed to drive to this place. It's a maze, isn't it, Brace? Like, this place is...
Yeah, it's pretty complex as far as apartment complexes go.
Mm-hmm. And no, like...
A complex apartment complex.
Yeah. So yeah, literally, I like for you arriving today, I walked to the entrance rather than give you instructions. It's that complicated. And so I arrived, and there's no mobile phone signal here because we're in, if anyone knows it, Toluca Lakes or Toluca Hills, and there's hills. So there's no mobile phone signal in this little valley bit. So I'm trying to text mum to say, I'm fine, I'm here, not going through. Trying to ring her, not connecting. Sent her a message saying, I'll ring you when I get to the apartment and when I log onto the Wi-Fi. Arrive at the apartment. For people who know me, you'll know how much I use the internet. And the internet was broken. And so the chaos just continued. It took me...
Was the internet broken?
Yes.
Or was...
The entire internet was broken, Bryce.
The whole internet
yes.
was broken, you guys. It's garbage. Go ahead, sorry.
No, it's fine. My particular AT&T box, which I'm now told is a what, Bryce? It's an AT&T
Uverse.
Uverse.
Not a sponsor.
No.
Should be.
Should be. The amount of stress it's put me through in the last 2 days. Lordy me. And shout out to Wendon, my Airbnb host, who got a message from me, immediately tried to sort it out, didn't get put back on that night, but already I'm going through the whole kind of, I texted you from Ralph's. I was like, and for UK people, Ralph's is like Morrison's. And I was like, I'm really happy. I've got like my familiar foods and things, but knowing that the internet wasn't working. And then spent all of yesterday morning trying to sort out the internet with my Airbnb host, who was brilliant and really put the effort in to try and fix it.
Which is, I mean, and I just want to point this out, the internet for you is also huge because you don't have a stateside line as of yet.
No.
So everything is roaming. So roaming charges coming out the ears.
Right, and as I've said several times, my mum stresses and she needs to know that I'm safe and okay, and I've got a lot of life still left in London and in England, which means that I'm managing a life on 2 continents, and you can't do that without digital access. I also have clients. Now, happily, I hadn't booked anybody for the day that I arrived, but, you know, from today, I needed internet to post our podcast and do all the jazz yesterday, all that kind of stuff. Got sessions tomorrow. So it's just been like absolutely stressful. Woke up the next morning after arriving, still no internet. And I knew there wasn't going to be. It was one of those things where I just knew. And by about 4 a.m, I was in practical mode. I was like, what am I going to do? So I'd already made the decision by 5 a.m. of what I was going to do if the internet didn't get fixed here. Where I was going to go, found places on Airbnb, had all of these juggling of dates to get to the 17th. So you don't need to know the details, guys, it's boring. But literally the amount that I've been juggling in my brain has been very ridiculous. And just to be super clear with people, there's a huge amount of property in LA. It's insane. But because I'm a UK citizen, I can't just rent anywhere off Zillow, or I'm not allowed to. They would need to reference other people and guarantors and all that jazz.
Yes, you're messy.
Yes. So I need to have very specific places, and also we're building a business, and we've got a lot of media to create in the next month, and we've got a lot of stuff to do. And so my apartment is our HQ. We work from my homes, and that is for many reasons, and it works. And therefore, I can't just have a studio apartment because like my bed would be in the background of our YouTube videos. And yeah, so these apartment complexes that I'm looking at have facilities. They have places where we can record videos, we can record this podcast, we can do much more. So I've been trying to juggle all of these variables. Happily, and I was going to take my car back to the car rental place and just stamp my feet and get them to give me a downgrade, and also get the refund of $122 for fuel, which is insane. So I practically did all of this. We spent the time yesterday morning, we got the internet fixed. I took my car back, but it was still chaos because just before setting off to go to take my car back, I had the internet working. So what did I do, guys? I checked my apartment for the 17th was available, and guess what? It had gone. So by this point, I'm like, in the knowledge that the stress I was experiencing was continuing into me being in LA. Like a day in, I know that it's not LA is the problem or you need to re-question your future. It is, there is chaos in your world right now, Victoria. It's batshit crazy, excuse my French. And there's always a reason for that, which we'll come back onto. But so I took my car back, and the guy at the car rental place thought I was an absolute weirdo for campaigning for a downgrade, but he was very good. Sixt, call out for you as well. Again, not sponsored, bloody well should be, given all the stress they've been putting me through. But I have a better car. I'm here. It's all good. But I knew that I had no place to go to from Friday. I'm heading to Austin next Tuesday. There's a lot to deal with. And so I stopped, because at that point I knew that I needed to do something different, which we're going to come on to at the end of the podcast. But what I want to talk to everyone about right now is I'm very sensitive to the world around me. I am a supreme empath. Sometimes I don't even think I know how sensitive I am, but the amount of times I'm thinking what somebody else is, or I say something and somebody else is like, oh, thank you for saying that, I really was frightened to say it. All of that kind of stuff. Dealing with all of this uncertainty, that's my particular experience, but as you just said, we have all had times in our life where we feel like our lives are a ball of wool that's just unraveling in front of our eyes, and we can't understand it and we can't do anything about it, and it's super stressful. So I would really love for us to get into a conversation about how to move through those times as an empath, and then at the end we will share the big revelation of what this was about for me and how I ultimately resolved it, to the extent that, and spoiler alert, just so everyone is aware, I have a place to go from Friday, and I also have a place to go for the longer term of my stay here, which lasts till the 28th of February, and I also have a place to stay when I'm back in April and May.
Funny how that works when you do what you did, and we're going to get to talk about that today. We're going to get to explore it.
Yes, but first we're going to talk about how to deal with it when it's still chaotic, because it's all I love these things where we talk about getting to the miracle point. Yeah, useful. However, what do you do when you're still in the shit?
Right, when you're like, I don't want to be talked off the cliff. I don't want to be made to feel better. Just don't touch me. I want to punch a hole in the wall.
Right. Yeah, and when somebody's saying just trust the universe, makes you want to throw things.
Oh yeah, and choke them.
Yes.
And then throw them.
Yes. And everyone will have had that experience, and we put empath in the title of this podcast. If you're not an empath or you're not a highly sensitive person, doesn't matter, because we all deal with it. So where should we start, my dear?
Okay, can we use you as the example?
I think we are,
yeah. So you're in it, everything's basically falling apart around you, like the walls are coming down, and you're feeling that emotionally, you're feeling that physically. How else would you say you were experiencing it?
I think, and I love where you started with this, because what is actually happening in those moments when we're stressed is a really interesting question to ask.
Yeah.
So for me, emotionally, you're so right. I was in that space of conflict around my entire future. It felt like I was moving in one direction and the universe was going, nope, 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 and no again. And it's like, oh, this is actually hurting. Physically, I was feeling it. So that moment in Heathrow, just before getting on the plane, it was like I was about to have a panic attack.
Yes.
Again, I was on the phone to my mum, and she just didn't know what to say. She's like, I don't know what to say. Particularly if you're about to get on a plane and be out of communication for 11 hours.
Right.
It's quite a stressful thing. But I was having all of those symptoms. So fast heart rate, feeling like I couldn't breathe properly.
Okay.
And then the default of what our brain then does, and I think this is really important for people to hang on to, is tries to seek solutions. And this is the biggest problem about these stressful moments, is our brains are computers that will literally go, how do I fix it? How do I fix it? How do I fix it?
But it's trying to fix it in the state of not thinking clearly, not thinking rationally, not coming from a place of calm, centeredness, understanding, grounded.
Yeah, and put a pin in that, people, because we'll come back to that later, because it is relevant for my revelation point.
Yes.
That I had a moment.
Okay.
Where I had my internet and I'd taken my car back, and it's like, okay. And I calmed, and it was that point which got me to have the space to see solutions.
Okay.
Whereas up until that point, and almost ever since I left here, I didn't want to leave. You know, I didn't want to leave. It was awful.
I want to leave these blue and green eyes. Are you kidding me?
It wasn't quite that, guys. It was, it was more the sunshine. But No, like we do. We have such a close friendship, and we developed such a routine. And for me, my body was already struggling going into this travel, coming back, because I'd gone from, and people, the reason we're stressing this physical stuff is because you are a body. Primarily, you are a physiological entity. So I'd gone from spending a lot of time with you on a daily basis, in a routine, having sunshine, being in a place where you can go out for a walk at 7 o'clock at night, you can get anything at any time, that existence, to Shetland, which has a beauty all of its own, but is cold. It's dark from like 3 o'clock in the afternoon till about 9:30 the following morning. There's very little daylight at this time of year. There's elements, it's always windy, or there's hail, all that kind of stuff, which can be very beautiful, but it's going from this existence to that, and losing the routine of being you.
Which is a shock to the system.
Total shock to the system. And then again, I mentioned it before, but there's a real reason I like to be on the same time zone, because I'm that energetically sensitive that me having my 6 o'clock vibe when you've got your 10 a.m. vibe, it really doesn't work. We're on different modes, and we found that all the way through our course when we were working together.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it goes with the cycle, like...
Circadian.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, it just is that I'm, particularly when the sun sets at 3, by the time I was speaking to you at 6 o'clock, it's like it's been dark for 3 hours. Your entire body's on that kind of slowdown. So I was already in this space, and I've been quite unwell, feeling physically sick, and then for those of people who follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I had a massive allergic reaction, skin allergic reaction, the day after Boxing Day. So I'd spent about a week and a half not knowing whether my face was ever going to look the same again. It was really stressful.
Serum, not a sponsor.
No, bloody serum. So yeah, I was already in stress, and for me then, like, travel is challenging, and also people, I think the thing to really root home for people is that this existence, this nomadic existence I'm kind of living at this moment in time, means I don't have a permanent base, I don't have a roof over my head, I don't have a place to leave my shit.
Which is also stressful.
Super stressful.
And your body, your nervous system picks up on that.
Love that you just mentioned the nervous system, because everything that we're talking about physiologically is that nervous system basis of safety or threat. And we were speaking before I left, actually, and we went for a little walk that day down the road, and I was kind of explaining to you what my life has been like for the last few years.
Yeah.
And it's been that level of uncertainty. And just to bring this into everyone else's world as well, this is what the coronavirus pandemic has done for people as much as anything else. It is that uncertainty of whether we're going to be on lockdown for another X amount of time, when we're going to be able to get back to, quote, normal life. Yes, I've been doing an extreme version of it, because I was in South Africa and never had any permanence to my residency there. It was always like, I might have to leave at the end of this month, I might have to leave at the end of this month, I might have to leave. And just living 3 months to 3 months to 3 months, half of my stuff in storage, some of my stuff with me, it's very destabilizing. But everyone's been through a similar version of that in the last few years with this pandemic. There has been so much unknown. And the feeling like the people who should know, the governments, the people in power, haven't got it figured out. Like, they seem to be making rules up as they go along, and changing them at will. And that has been incredibly destabilizing for everyone's nervous system. And I think when we look at the kind of divisiveness that's cropping up in very many areas at the moment, I believe that this has a real core part of it where we're just all feeling so unsafe because of the threat of a virus, unsafe because the people who were supposed to be able to look after us didn't really know what they were doing at the beginning, and they made some wrong decisions and then they changed them, and now we really don't know whether we can trust them anymore. And this is pretty universal. It's not every country, but it's pretty accurate for most places. And then the threat of livelihoods being lost, and, you know, entire workforce is being decimated by the lack of jobs, hospitality, music, entertainment, all that kind of stuff. So this is all of the backdrop, and it's really affecting people physiologically, even if you think you're okay. So for me, going into all of this, I think that moment just before I got on the plane on Sunday was just, I had no safe place to land, and I had no ability to find a place within me that felt certain about anything.
Got it. what do you feel attributed? I mean, other than all of these circumstances, what do you feel attributed to that feeling of uncertainty within yourself? Because there's a lot of outside things.
I think that because of all the outside things, I was starting to question myself.
Okay.
And I think that I'm doing a lot of crazy stuff at the moment, and people look at me and they get really kind of like, oh, she must have so much confidence. And if anyone listened to our New Year episode, our live episode last week, it's like, I tend to just grip myself together and throw myself into things. Whether that's founded on confidence is a bigger question, because it isn't a lot of the time. For me, I'm very lucky in that I have been living from my physiological convictions of this feels right and jumping in for a very long time. And that feels like a very privileged place to sit in, because I have something that I can trust. But when every single signal is saying no, that means I lose that and I don't have that confidence.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's even more scary, because in those moments it's like I've lost even my knowledge that getting on this plane is the right thing to do. And
okay.
Yeah.
Great. So you're there. Even you, Victoria Fenton, who's been a coach, she's like, she knows what's going on. She has the skill set to do it. What do you think started to shift it, where you started to, and I hesitate to use this word, but take that control and that confidence back and build it yourself, so that it wasn't coming from something outside, but from within you, because that's where it came from. Yes.
Well, yeah, I think that. So I think several things, and just to whiz back to what we were saying earlier as well. This is such a nervous system physiological thing that there's no mindset techniques that can kind of help you.
Okay.
Because your mind is busy looking for control solutions. What can I do to change this to fix it?
Right.
So my mind was mostly there, to be honest. My mind was mostly in mentally juggling all of the variables and trying to think my way through the problem.
Great, which, I want to emphasize to everybody, is an okay place to start. It's like, there's no right way to do this. It's like, okay, what do I have the skill set to move on through in this particular moment with these particular circumstances?
And I love that you said that, because if I'd have been trying to stop my mind doing the things that it was doing, it would have been worse.
No, yeah, it would have. I mean, it goes back. I think we said this a couple times, when you try to quiet something, it only gets louder.
Yeah. Yeah, and the bit that I'm also missing that fed into this was the day down from Shetland back to Heathrow. I spent 5 hours in Shetland Airport because my flight was so delayed. I missed 2 connecting flights.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot about that. I've literally just remembered that.
Yeah, you want to talk about stress.
Oh my God. And do you know what? It just was. And it was that day that started the change. So
yeah.
I was sitting in the airport and I was updating family and updating my dad and updating my brother and his family, and my mum was with me in Sunbury Airport for quite a while. And everyone else was getting way more stressed than I was and having loads of empathy. But by the time I'm in an airport, and I wasn't through in security yet because I didn't want to, by the time I'm in an airport, I'm in that space of, I have no control here. And that's the interesting thing, which brings it back to your point earlier. Everything I've been doing from my mum's lounge, trying to grapple for apartments and think about COVID testing and all that jazz, is stuff that you feel like you're in control of because you're clicking a mouse.
And I think that's important, that you feel like you're in control of.
Right.
I love the way you said it. Go.
No, it's like when you have the illusion of control, you're going to try and control, and you're going to stranglehold every eventuality. It's like that ball of wool that I mentioned at the very beginning. You're grabbing onto every bit and trying to roll it back into a ball because you think you're in control.
Yeah. Can we pause right here?
Absolutely.
And let's talk about control.
Yeah.
So what do you feel are some other ways that we as human beings try to manifest this illusion of control?
Like in every which way. Like,
Yeah.
So
just to give people things to kind of latch onto, possibly in their own lives.
So I think, scientifically speaking, the action, the decision that we make, I think there's now proof that our brain sends the signal before we even have the thought. I'm not quite getting the science right, but the moment you're conscious of a thing that you think is going to happen, it actually happened before you're conscious of that thing going to happen. So when you actually break it down and think that you're a tiny speck of atoms on a massive ball traveling very fast around a sun, and every synapse that we can measure fires before you're consciously aware of making an actual decision, you're like, are you really making any decisions at all?
Interesting.
Yeah.
That could be a good podcast.
All right. Well, and it's where I live, so I know, and this is the point that I really want to drive home to people. I have so much knowledge of all of the stuff I've just said. I know I'm not making any decisions. I know I'm literally just at the mercy of the universe, shall we say. That's the place I live from. It is my belief system. And yet still, I'm sitting on Google going, there must be an apartment in LA. I must be able to find it. And it's just human nature, because like I said before, if there's a puzzle ahead of us, the brain wants to fix it. The brain is never really aware that it's the last to the party. Like, there's been activity happening beforehand that means that, and I'm a believer in destiny and fate, and there's no free will and all that kind of jazz, and people can choose to believe it or not. It actually makes my life easier to believe that.
You believe there's no free will?
No, yeah. Have we not had this conversation?
I think we've touched on it, but I don't think you've ever stated it that.
Yeah, so a lot of
plainly.
my wisdom comes from human design, where
okay.
there literally can't be any free will. And the way I mean, just to put language to it, this is the best way I've felt to describe it. I believe that life is a choreography that happens with all the pieces melding into their perfect part in the dance of the composition that is the evolution of consciousness. Which means that we don't have free will, we can't have, because we have agency as a mental energy within this reality illusion. So we need to think that we're doing things, and we need to have the thoughts. And even if you believe that there is no free will, that's your destiny to believe that, and it's somebody else's destiny to believe that they do have free will and control and all that kind of stuff. And I've got no judgments about which side people choose.
Yeah, it's definitely not a criticism at all, yeah.
It just is, for me, I find it so relaxing to just energetically trust that I'm always in the right place. Even in all of this that I said to you at the beginning of this podcast, guys. And this is the thing, because I am a physiological human organ, and set of organs, but like an organism that is physiological, none of my knowledge about always being in the right place takes away those existential fear threats of not having anywhere to live, not having enough money in the bank to afford the place that I want to live. They are primal, like authentic physical threats, and I am a human being with a nervous system, so when there is a physical threat, I have to respond accordingly with panic and stress and worry. And my brain will by default go to thinking how to fix it, even if my baseline belief system is I'm absolutely always in the right place. And for me, that's annoying, because I get back to the point of remembering it, but I do have to semi-forget it in those moments. And I can say it like a Zen koan, I'm always in the right place. But I have to live the experience as it's being lived. It's not that I can mindset my way out of this physiological threat reality. I have to be in the threat reality. So I think for me, the moment it started to shift was because I was in an airport where I had no control over the snow at Glasgow. And I was literally sitting there going, this is so interesting, because, and this is the way the universe works, I'd already decided to book a buffer day between getting back down to the mainland and then coming out to here. Had I not done that, I would never have made it here. It was just so stressful. But that came instinctively to me in one of my, do you know it's right to book it on Sunday? No, I know why. I'm just going to book my LA flight a day after I arrive. But that post story with nothing arriving in the mail, when we were sitting in Sunborough Airport, the mail arrived at home. So my mum actually left the airport, which was 10 minutes away, and came back with the post. And 2 of the letters were something that helped us to resolve a legal document that has been a year and a half in the making. We finally had access codes and we logged on and managed to fix that before I got onto a plane. And your wife's present arrived.
Mm-hmm.
So both of those things happened and wouldn't have happened had my plane been on time. And by that point, I'm like, the universe is working for me, not against me, even though all of these signals look like it's working against me. And that tiny chink of light started the process of me stepping into less of a space of I'm in control, and if I can just do this right, the universe will work for me, and actually going, the universe is working for me. I've got something wrong here and I don't know what it is, and the universe is protecting me by giving me what looks like chaos. And I didn't hold on to that strongly for the next few days, but it was somewhere in the back of my mind. Brace is thinking.
I'm thinking.
Brace is thinking. And it's interesting because I feel very strongly like the only point of being a human is to live the human experience fully. So feeling all the feelings, having all the stress, embracing all of the mental anguish.
Yes.
And trusting at the same time. And I think that the illusionary trap that people fall into, particularly in spiritual communities, is they think that the trust eliminates the fear. I accepted long ago that fear is a default of being a human. It can't not be here because we are survival-based organisms. So we have to have fear, we have to carry it. And it's all very well, the mindset coaches out there thinking you can believe your way into whatever, abundance, prosperity, the dream partner, all of those kinds of things. And there's a huge role for mindset work because it's an access point to the nervous system. But we're not doing it to eliminate the stress or the fear or the anxiety. We're doing it to give us a counterbalance so that in those moments of stress and anxiety, we're at least conscious that something else exists somewhere. Does that make sense?
Yes, but I disagree.
Ooh! How dare you? You're just wrong. No, I'm going to carry on.
Well, I don't, what expression am I trying to use? I don't buy into that everything is free will. I feel like, this is so funny because this quote from Forrest Gump keeps coming into my head because that's when he says, some people think that, and I'm butchering his quote here, but it's free will, or is it predetermined? Like predestiny, and he says, I don't know, I feel like it's a little bit of both. And that's what makes sense for me. Maybe it's because I'm destined to it's my destiny to think that. I mean, I can't take that away because I don't have any proof.
Right, and that's where those arguments get stupid, because it's like paradox. I'm always going to win because I can make everything you think not free will, which is just insane. It's like no point in having that conversation.
I do believe that there are roles for us to fill and play, and this kind of goes back into our purpose podcast 2 podcasts ago. 3. Go back and listen to that one if you want to get into that. That's really fun. One of the things, and I can just leave that there because I'm sure that that's a much bigger conversation, but what really stuck out for me that you said that I thought was really wonderful, and I just wanted to tweak it just a little bit because you were on a roll, so I didn't want to interrupt, but it was what the universe was showing up as chaos, but it was not the universe showing up as chaos, it was the universe showing up as the universe, and your experience of it was, this is chaos.
Awesome reframe, yes. The universe was just
doing its thing.
And the problem was that I was trying to hang on to control as the universe was saying, please go over here. And the issue was that I wasn't just going, okay, universe, I'll comply. I was going, but I want to be there. Oh no, but I want to be there. No, I'm right, universe.
Right. And your experience of it was really just, and you can totally refute this, was really just a signal to you that you needed to not. It was like the universe was using your physical and emotional experience of it as a signal to you, not as a bad thing, but as something to get your attention.
Yes.
That, Victoria, you know better than this. You know, and it did. I feel like it did for you.
Eventually. And it took a bloody long time. And for me,
and that's okay.
And I think it took a long time because I needed to be in the right environment for me to stop. I think if I would have had the insight to pause or the insight to think differently prior to the time that I did, I would have been surrounded by other things. And this is why I wanted the title to have the word empath in it. Because for me, I always had these fantasies of being on a plane and being able to have these deep meditative thought processes where I'm actually going to come up with some brilliant something or other. Being on a plane is one of the worst experiences for an empath because you're surrounded by people in a confined metal box. At least one of the people on that plane does not like flying, probably many more. There's always children who don't understand the concept. It's a physiological body screw over as well. You are 35,000 feet in the air in a humming, very loud metal tube. You're always sitting around someone who is just not an energetic match for you because like throwing hundreds of people on a plane together, you're always going to get that. It's not particularly comfortable. You're not free. You're not allowed to just get up and down as you want to. And as an empath, it's an awful experience.
Restrictive. It's extremely restrictive.
Awful. And it isn't like you can let go of all of the energies as an empath. You have to be in the environment that you're in. And my key to empaths is if you don't like how you're feeling, walk away. You can't do that on a plane in the air. So it very much is, I needed to hold on to every stress, every not self-fear, every anxiety, because I was aware enough to know that the universe was doing something so I would be in somewhere different, but I couldn't work out why. I was like, is it Brace that's wrong? Is it the business that's wrong? Is it the Lux Mastermind that's wrong? Is it, where am I looking in LA that's wrong? I was doing all of that stuff, but I absolutely needed to hold on to the tension. And honestly, I was so exhausted on Sunday night that not having the Wi-Fi actually meant that I didn't distract into stressful finding another place because I couldn't be on the internet. And it was the clarity of waking up on Monday morning, like I said, at 4 o'clock, and knowing what I needed to do to get my nervous system back to safety. And for me, and I've said this before, safety isn't what anyone else says safe is. It's not a bubble bath and some, rose petals for me. For me, safety really is my internet connection, because my life is so enabled by being able to connect to people. I'm also a 4/6 for anyone who's into human design. I'm literally a connector. If I'm not connected, I feel like I'm dying. And my environments, so the places around me, home, car, all really important. So I knew that in order to get anywhere, I needed to get back to a space of safety. So my order for my day yesterday was get the internet sorted, get the car sorted, reach out to you and get a certainty around our routines for this week. There's another stress about finding outfits for Austin next. I need to get these things, and they're all very external. Outfits, houses, cars. It's like the boxes I'm going to put myself in. Clothes, house, car. And can it be connected? It needs to be safe for me, and then my nervous system can breathe. And I think that the biggest stress over the last few months has been being in somebody else's home, in my mum's home, so a few weeks, so the last month, and not knowing what any of those boxes were going to look like going forwards, not knowing where the house was going to be, and not being allowed, because of the circumstances, to just choose.
It's scary.
And also, I wasn't trusting. Like I knew I was going to be here. I know I'm going to Austin, and yet I still, for reasons that are I've explained already about my mum and the environment that I was in, but also just because of the global stress, I still wasn't allowing myself to trust enough to spend money on booking a place, just in case. And that isn't a very me thing to do. I'm normally put the money down, it's fine, I'll get it back. But something about the whole build up of the 3 years and then the few months and then the month, it just was, I wasn't trusting. So that clarity on Monday morning where I was like, get my nervous system back to safety and then I can breathe, meant that when I lost that apartment from the 17th, I wasn't even thinking about it. It was like, I cannot focus on that until I have my safety. I need the internet, I need to sort my car out, and I need to just breathe. And that's exactly what I did. And so for me, getting back to safety was the bit that allowed me the space to then deal with the stress.
So, would get back to safety, whatever that means for whomever's listening. Do you feel like that is the starting point, or that is the ultimate goal to get back to that safety?
Well, starting point.
Got it.
And I mean, it's an interesting thing because I'm so sensitive, it matters to me. How do you feel like safety matters to you? I'm genuinely interested because I know my experience and I can only talk from my experience, and I have learned over time the anchors that I need in my life that make me feel safe.
Right.
Connection, house, mode of transport.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody, and everybody wants and needs those, whatever's specific to them and their safety. Figure out what those are for yourself and get honest. You know, what do you really need? And I would say simplify it as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, connection, that's yours. Like, yes, it wasn't, in this instance, an internet connection, but connection is super important to your safety. So we would invite our audience to look at these moments where you're feeling like everything is spinning out, you're spinning out, you're not able to feel the ground under your toes, and it's like, okay, what if and how we can pause, become aware of the situation, pause, and then, okay, what do I need to feel safe right now?
And you know, for me, it tends to be the same things, but it can be different things in different moments, and it's never the first thing that it comes to. So, like, safety could have been for me yesterday finding a place to go on the 14th of January.
Right.
That was the secondary. That's an external.
And I think this is an amazing thing that you're pointing out. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, that's an external. That's another thing that I can't control. Like, I can search all I want on the internet. It's not an external thing that you're looking for. It's a nervous system thing that makes you feel safe, that you can control. And so I always say to my clients, it's like, if you're out of control in that area, find something that makes you feel safe in a different area. So for me, resolving the car became a massive deal, way bigger than it probably should have done, because it was about me taking back control as well. And for me, it was a big deal to drive all the way back to LAX, basically, and go, this is what I want. I'm standing my ground, and I'm paying you for a service. You're going to deliver it. So it wasn't just a car thing. It was a reclaiming my authority from what I actually wanted. And that, again, is a really important ingredient in the revelations that I got to. And I think for me, every single one of these experiences became an ingredient that gave me fuel to chew on when I eventually stopped.
I love it. Well, I mean, just for our audience, what do you feel is a way for them to be able to pause in those moments and really break it down to, what is this really about, as opposed to, I just need to get the car, or I just need to get the kids to do this, or I just need my partner to do this. It's like, is that what you need? Like, those are all secondary. What's the underlying thing that you need? What's something that people can do?
Do you know what I love?
What's that?
The question why. If you need your partner to do X thing, why?
Why?
If you need this, why? Like, what does it
Challenge
give you
yourself.
as a secondary thing? Because the secondary thing is what you actually need.
There you go.
And it just turn into an annoying 3-year-old on yourself.
Did everybody's head just go?
It's so simple, and we all get into this, particularly if we are in relationships and we are in partnerships where you're kind of doing life together. It becomes very easy to default into, I just wish they would do X. We talked about this in nonviolent communication. It's like, why do you want them to do X? Like, what is it about the thing that you're thinking about that is the thing that's creating the issue? Because it's not, as we were talking about, putting the dishes in the dishwasher. It's what that signifies. And so that's such a minor example. It probably isn't fertile ground, but there are so many little examples, particularly in partnership, of, oh my God, I just need this. And you have no idea why you need it, but it's usually a case of a trust thing, or you've asked a million times. It's a demonstration of love. Yeah. It's like that not putting the dishes in the dishwasher, it means you don't love me, which is extreme,
right?
But it's actually partly there. But again, why do you need love? You need love because it's safe. It's safer to feel loved than it is to feel alone.
I love it. And I love where this podcast has gone.
I know, like it's nowhere where we thought.
No, but it's brilliant. And that's why, we were both like, let's just hit record and we'll just go. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And I think that gives everybody listening a lot to chew on. It's like, break it down to the basics. Why do I need this thing? Or this thing done, or this situation to resolve itself or get resolved, and then figure out why you needed that and what was the driving force behind why you needed that. And then that's where we really get into the coaching part of it, because we get to break stuff down to the bare bones.
Yeah. And motivation. And it's a lot of the work that I find myself doing, whether I'm calling it out directly or not, is working on people's drivers, their unconscious drivers underneath their actions.
Yeah, because it's a lot of it is unconscious. Almost all of it. That's why putting the dishes away, the unconscious doesn't think about or rationalize these are the dishes, this isn't a big deal. No, not putting the dishes away is a direct parallel to something that is in the subconscious, and the subconscious does not make those rationalized decisions and choices. It just reacts. And we have to remember that about ourselves. Give yourself a break in that, guys. Give yourself a break in that.
Right, but do the work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Of course.
To get like the awareness of what it really means and really signifies is so important. And I think also to be clear with people, like, there's safety in the now, and then there's bigger long-term safety. And just to bring it back to the love and aloneness and partners and all that kind of stuff, the reason we do seek partners in this human organism that I keep saying today is because it is safer to do life with people than it is on our own. And I briefly alluded to it earlier, but a lot of the difficulty for me in being in the UK was I felt really disconnected from you, from my friend and my business partner, and from somebody who, like, we developed such a routine and a rhythm together, and it was like I'd lost my support system as well as everything else. And so there are bigger safeties and littler safeties, and it's been so nice to be with you again today, because it's just like, it's like putting the warm, snuggly jumper on and going, yeah, I'm safe. And that is huge for me. So now when I'm going back to the UK, it isn't just that it's not a choice for me to do that. I'm losing something when I leave. And that makes me sad. Like, I don't have to get over that. I don't have to, pretend that I'm fine as an independent female. I'm genuinely not. I need people, and I need to accept that connection and that partnership that we have it for a reason. Like, it makes us both feel safe and good.
Universe. Well, I don't know where to go from here.
Right, well, we haven't got to the big revelation.
Oh,
yet.
yes.
So we can go back to that. So, I've made this podcast very much about flats and external houses and like cars and outside things. And I needed to, because that was all very true. What happened yesterday, when I stopped and I breathed, and actually I went to distract myself with like doing a course, because that's what I do. But I'm super self-aware, and that external chaos that I was going through was because internally I was in chaos, and not because of the loss of my LA life, and not because of being an empath and being around other people that I wouldn't necessarily choose to be around, but because there was some big, massive, major, huge rocks that I needed to look under for my own life. And the universe was throwing volcano eruptions in my world, not for any other reason than to get me to have a moment yesterday where I sat on the floor just over there and I started doing some journaling, and I started looking inwards and feeling into my relationship with the flow of life. Deep, incredibly deep stuff. Again, in existential ways, so very much looking at nourishment on every level. So influx of, food or money or love. And I see them as the same thing. It's always energy that is external coming through and into us and then out. And these three forces are things that support us as human beings in this universe. And for me, my relationship to all three of those has been very affected in my life for various reasons, for things that have happened to me. And I spent the last year really looking internally at a lot of the things that I've been going through. And I had another piece of work to do. I had to stop and I had to go inwards and I had to reflect on my relationship to being nourished by the world around me. Which sounds like it's got absolutely nothing to do with everything that we just said, but it does, because all of these conversations about houses was a financial decision. It's a financial commitment that I might have lost had I not got into the country. The thing about the car was that I didn't say no to something that I knew I didn't want in the moment, and that's a habit and a pattern for me. And all of this, every single tiny little nuance of delayed flights or stress or, not getting the seat I wanted on the plane, all of it has an ingredient that I had to reflect on yesterday about boundaries and about life flow and the flow of life coming through me. All of it in preparation for what we're doing this year, which is going to be huge as a team and me independently moving here. So I needed to stop and resolve that internal chaos. And that was deep work on my own, using resources that had nothing to do with it, but to bounce off and to feel my way through. And then I needed to stop and do some breath work and actually just take a moment to go, wow, okay, my relationship to the nourishment of the universe has been so affected in my life, and I need to really put myself in a state of receiving. And I did that. And
then what happened?
And then I got a text message from the person who owns my previous Airbnb, and so she has another place on the property, and I have a place to go from Friday now until I'm back from Austin.
Check.
And there is another, better, nicer apartment available in the building that I want to be in for the next month or so. And it's available from the day that I get back from Austin.
Check. It's pretty amazing.
It is so amazing. And it's so amazing because the piece of information that I was using to bounce off was not a piece of information I had access to until yesterday when I was granted access to it. And I couldn't get to that point without having gone, do you know what? No, I really want my other car and I really want this internet fixed. And if this internet isn't getting fixed, I'm leaving this place. And just standing my ground in a place of, actually, this is what I need, and I'm allowed to need these things. I am absolutely allowed to claim what I need for my safety.
Right.
And setting that boundary of having a no for the universe and a yes to the universe made me really appreciate what it's been trying to do. And the whole thing about, not being in the apartment that I wanted to from the 17th, I think, it shouldn't be about money, but it is going to save me over $1,000, I think. Just not being there for that week I mean, it's insane. And it just is, the universe was going, dude, you don't need to have a place when you're in Austin because you're already renting a place in Austin. Why don't you just leave your stuff in and it's just like, oh, I never even fucking thought of that.
Well, would it be fair to say that it was the internal work that got you to that place of clarity?
1,000%.
1,000. Love it.
And do you know, that internal work has led to us having a really profound conversation today.
Yeah, it was great.
And to me, sharing it with you, and it's sort of the kind of stuff that I don't normally talk about. It's the kind of layers of stuff where I'm like, oh no, that's just for me. I need to keep that bit private. And actually sharing it with you today was so easy. It was like, oh, I'm saying these words, and it just doing inner work. I couldn't recommend it enough because it changes the external world so dramatically.
Yeah.
And the ripple effect is huge. So you're going to go home today different to the person that you were when you walked in here, because you can't have a conversation with someone and share your stuff without it kind of rubbing off on them. And so we were talking about all sorts of things within this flow of the universe, and money, food and love and energy, and we had a deep conversation about all those things and where we're both at. And that has a spin-off effect into your family, your other business, your world. We're sharing this now on the podcast. Like, the reason I share so personally is because there is a real need for deep, raw honesty and for people not to feel ashamed of having shit in their world and chaos. And I fully own that every single moment of the chaos that I described to you when we opened this podcast was created by me. I invited it, I created it because I was not clear and I was not in a state of safety or peace. So my external world could not be in a state of safety or peace. And this isn't a criticism of me either. I needed to go through all of the headaches and the hassle and have all of the stress to get another layer down in my revelations of my relationship to the world.
You know what's interesting, and there are a lot of pieces kind of falling into place for me right now, because I am, of the mindset that whatever we are experiencing, that's what the universe delivers to us.
Yeah.
So if I'm feeling chaotic, the universe, God, Allah, however you want to say it, delivers chaos. And it's interesting in your situation because it delivered the chaos, but it delivered the chaos so that you could learn from it. So it was this beautiful, we call it chaos, and as human beings, just with our limited language, we hear chaos and we have a very specific feeling that comes up within us. But in this scenario, for you, it seems that chaos was literally the greatest gift ever, and you kind of gave it to yourself.
I believe we always do. In
this kind of weird, cyclical, way. It's like you needed to learn something. You started to experience the world a certain way. Then the universe responded in kind. And with that response, there was always a message delivered. And the message is always delivered in love. That's the way the universe, God, works. It's delivered in love. Whether how we experience that message is really all on us. But you had the ability to step back out of the storm. And guys, storms can be beautiful things. In this case, it definitely was. And see it for what it truly was. Calm, ground, all the things that you did for yourself, and you had massive revelations. And when you had that shift within you, the universe responded again with that shift.
Yeah.
Like it matched your wavelength, basically.
Yeah.
And then it gave you more blessings.
Yeah.
So it was like a chaotic, we're going to use heavy quotes around chaotic blessing, and then created by yourself.
Yes.
Are you God?
Yes.
Oh, because we can go back to that, man. Like, we can go back to that, man. It's like, we're all connected, and I'm part of God, and all that. And I believe all of that's true as well.
And I think we're always doing that.
Yeah.
I genuinely... So there's this thing in, coaching or illness and all that kind of stuff, and people say, well, why did you have to get to such a terrible place before you asked for help? Why did you have to hit rock bottom? Why did you? Because nobody calls for help when they're kind of doing great.
Right.
Rock bottom has to exist, and we invite the rock bottom so we get the help. Everyone is in judgment of like the rock bottom stage, and I'm like, no. And I always say this about my illness. I called that experience in. Even the bit that preceded it, I called it in.
Right.
As horrific and horrendous as it was, I invited it because I needed to be this person that is the product of decades of unwellness and struggle. I didn't need to be the person that I was aiming at being at 17.
Right.
I genuinely didn't. And it's like, had I not called in that chaos and all of the chaos that I'd just been through, like I sent you a message yesterday, I was like, I feel like this is a really final piece of landing. And we do this so our souls get their evolutionary journey.
I love it. Yeah, and I also want to point out that that's not bypassing what you were just talking about. That is not bypassing. Oh, it just is the way that it is.
And it's funny because people could say exactly the same words and they would be bypassing, but yeah.
Exactly. So know the difference. And if you need us to, should we describe the difference just in case someone's confused? So bypassing in that situation would have been justifying your experiences with, help me here.
Oh, well, just it's all meant to be anyway.
Oh yeah, it's all meant to be.
Yeah, and so what Brace is talking about is what we call spiritual bypassing, which is that it's almost like that positive Zen mental attitude thing of always looking for the silver lining of trauma. And it's like, oh, well, it's given me what I needed, or, you know.
Yeah, well, it's like, but yeah.
And also, and the way to tell the difference, if you're interested, is time. So if somebody's saying that within a minute of the thing happening, they're probably bypassing because they haven't allowed for the real humanity of the situation
to hit them, and that's the body's natural reaction to do that. Yeah.
Right. And so I think for me, people can tell, particularly if you're in presence with me when I say things like that, the resonance just hits different.
It's different. Way different.
Yeah. And I always remember a conversation I had with a business colleague of mine where I told him the story the first kind of time we were out for a cocktail in Helsinki. And I told him the story and he said, oh my God, you must hate the NHS. And I was like, do you know, I really don't. And I explained why. And he was like, wow, you really mean that? And it's like, it just feels different when somebody's not going, it was all meant to be, but going, I really am grateful for that experience because I need to be this person. And for me, that has caused a lot of confusion in attributing responsibility in the past to people who have wronged me. Because I took it all on myself. I was like, all me, I invited it, all my fault, but also all my choosing, I guess. And it doesn't excuse others' behaviour. And that's the line that's very difficult to walk. And that's where I really would invite working with someone, because you need external eyes for someone to say, okay, and that person also did a wrong thing. And so for me, that's why this year has been so relevant, because I started talking a lot about things that happened to me, and I had external eyes. I had you, I had a good friend of ours, Christine, who really allowed me to hold both of those dualities. Yes, grateful. Yes, I called this in. Yes, I needed this rock bottom. And external people were also responsible, and that I needed other people to tell me. And this goes back to connection and community and doing things as teams. Like, I do a lot of work on my own, I'm very good at it, but I mentioned the fact that I was bouncing off another resource earlier because I need externals to move through all of this.
Yeah, we all do.
We absolutely all do. And I have decades of experience and still absolutely need external eyes. And yes, so the universe is always showing up with love, but don't tell yourself that in the middle of chaos, because if you're experiencing it as chaos, allow it to feel chaotic, because it is. It's chaos right in that moment, and
it's not the enemy. It's not the enemy at all. It's definitely, there is a message in there. Remember, it comes in. The messages come in very different shapes and forms.
And they might not always be what you want to hear.
Yes, but why don't you want to hear it?
True.
Ooh, there's some. Ooh, let that twist your noodle for a little bit. Why don't you want to hear it?
Well, and again, it comes back to you're trying to control somewhere, you're trying to hold on somewhere, and you are trying to think that this is what you want, so you don't want to hear the thing that is not in alignment with what you want. And it's hard to accept some of this stuff. And yesterday I really had to just sit there and go, oh my God, I'm holding on so tight to what I thought was a safety blanket. And it's everything that we've spoken about today is, where are you unsafe? What do you need to get safe? What are you holding on to as a safety blanket that isn't actually safe, you just think it's safe?
Mm-hmm.
It's all the same stuff. And you know, our podcast may get very, very boring over the next few years because it's always about this. It's always about safety and threat, because our nervous systems run everything. And our nervous system is the system that senses whether we are safe or under threat. And it's not that we always have to be one or the other, as we've just explained. I absolutely needed to feel completely under threat since the moment I left LA in December. And I got to feel all of that, all of the funk, all of the, oh, this is interesting. And I got to come back to LA and realise I do love it here. I love the light. I love the fact that it's 20-something degrees today and it's January the 11th or whatever. It was insane. But I also love the vibration here. There's something about it. And
that was in Celsius.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sorry, it's way warmer than you think if you thought that was Fahrenheit. So yeah, it's there's something about it. And I had to lose all of that to re-find it.
Lose it to find it. Damn.
You can't find things if you never lose them. You can't remember things if you never forget them.
That's right.
Can't realise things if you didn't know them.
No. Where? Keep pulling.
No,
I'm like, how far is she gonna go?
I was thinking, contemplating going further, but like I'm gonna stop. So it is really, and that speaks back to the why do you need the dark night of the soul? Because you can't find the light if you don't know the dark.
Yep. No hot without cold, or vice versa. No light without the dark. No. Yeah.
And for me, it's like what I shared with you today and what I got to yesterday was a real dark thing. But was it? No, it wasn't. It was also a really light thing at the same time. And what I'm going to struggle to convey to everyone, but really want to try my hardest over all of these podcasts, all of our courses, is the absolute paradox in which I love to live life. Because life is a paradox. It is accepting everything's meant to be, but also having free will at the same time, or at least the illusion of it, or whatever. It is, you know, really having to live in the chaos, but trusting that it's all right at the same time.
Yeah, it's like, why do you need to have the pain to transform?
Yeah.
It's like, which goes back to
And
Keys, right?
Yeah, it's shadows, and absolutely. So, and in Gene Key's world, but this is very ancient wisdom as well, the gifts aren't over there and the shadows over here. Within the shadow is the essence of the gift. It has to be. Because it's the same archetypal energy, just at a different vibrational frequency. So it's the same thing.
Yep.
The same thing.
And it shows up, and it's so funny, guys. It shows up in pop culture. Like, just, I mean, look at Star Wars. You got the dark, you've got the Sith, you got the Jedi, but the original, I can't remember the official name for the original Jedi, but practice both, the light and the dark. You need both in order to be amazing.
Yeah. And we cling on so hard to good, totally forgetting that bad has to be the contrast.
Well, that was the downfall of the Jedi.
Oh, okay. I've never seen Star Wars. People phrase hates me. He mentions films all the
Well,
time.
and as I'm speaking, some people who are way more
Star Wars
efficient may disagree, or I may be right on the money. But from what I understand, that was the reason that the Jedi fell, is because they went too far to one side, and the Sith went too far to the other side, and there was no balance in the universe.
And we don't talk about politics a lot on this podcast, guys, but look at what's happening in the universe at this moment in time. There is so much extremism, and I'm not talking, extremists, terrorists and stuff like that. I'm talking extreme opinions. People are going so far to one side because they feel like it's safer. And I think that's why people do it. This clanship of going over to one side with their belief system and the echo chamber that you get to live in. It isn't healthy to never be able, because you go so far to one side, you lose sight of the other perspective.
Well, and this is one of the things that I've been actually, in my opinion, extremely blessed to experience. I grew up in the South, and I'm also of a much more liberal mindset, but I understand both sides. I have experienced both sides. I totally get both sides, and I gotta be honest, it's a very powerful place to be.
I don't know how we ended up here from stress and my crazy travel journey, but there we go, guys. Another insane unveil traversing of these topics, because everything that we do at Unveil is about unveiling the human condition.
Yeah.
And so these kind of twisting conversations which take us from one thing all the way down to the deep south.
Well, I love it. These conversations are great, and I love exploring different ideas, and I love that our trajectory continues to shift and move throughout as we speak. I just think it's much more engaging. It's much more fun. It's much more fun.
I hope so. And if people disagree, do tell us. But we're not going to make any promises that we can stick on topic, let alone want to. So and we don't have my whiteboard, so I'm struggling. But yeah, it's we really hope that you as listeners are getting value from our high-level topic conversations, because these seriously matter. And a lot of coaching is techniques and tools, etc. But a lot of having awareness begins with having these kinds of conversations and asking different questions and digging deeper and looking at different things. So that's why we go all out there. Not because we need you to believe us or agree with us, but because we want to stimulate your own level of self-reflection so that you can actually begin unveiling your own truths.
I love it. Feel good?
Feel really good. I feel even better now that chaos is not looking like chaos and it's actually resembling love.
Beautiful. I love that. Chaos is actually love.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Anyway, for now, I'm Brace Harris.
And I am Victoria Fenton.
And we are
Unveil.